one day I got a text or something from my friend saying, "Oh my God, you're on Kanye's blog." And my friend Jay was livid because he was like, "How can he be writing about you? You don't even appreciate this."
I've been dying to get a female back onto my podcast for some time, and I feel like the next guest I'm about to interview, a lady called Katie Erie, is perfect. She's worked alongside the likes of Pretty Green, Matches, Men's Fashion, River Island, and there's a bunch of other companies, but one of the kind of most influential people, brands she's worked with is Kanye West. And I want to talk about her kind of rise in the fashion sector, her experience, the business side of it as well as the creative side, and then most importantly, the dealings she had with people like Kanye West, because it's very, very interesting to see how these people operate. Obviously Kanye West is very, very successful, so I want to know what the relationship was like. I've got no doubt it's going to be a very, very good podcast, very insightful, educational as well as motivational. She's currently working also at our company, Woodbury House, and we're looking to develop some very cool collectible merchandise, which is going to go onto our online shop in the next coming months. So this is a double-edged sword. This is partly to do with my podcast, The Stephen Sulley Study, and getting inspiration from a figurehead in fashion, someone who's made a very, very good mark and a very, very good dent in that sector. But then also at the same time, us at Woodbury House, how we're going to be working with her and how that relationship has unfolded over the last few months, and some projects she's lined up for us. Looking forward to getting this done. Be happy, never content, and please leave a comment and a review. Thank you very much. Right, I've already done the intro. I've got my next guest, Katie Erie. I've been on your case for some time, and just to let you know, I can only count probably less than 5 females that come onto my podcast out of 60.
Breaking the mold.
66 or 67 episodes, and that probably says a lot about me, around women. As I was saying to you earlier, I've never been on a dating app, and it probably wouldn't go down too well if I did. But anyway, thank you for coming on. So this is like partly to do with my podcast about the inspiration, motivation, how you got into like business and also fashion, how you made a name for yourself.
Yeah.
But then also you're working alongside us at Woodbury House and talking about the merchandise, the artists that you're bringing to the table, the creative ideas. So there's a lot of things to talk about basically.
Yeah.
So there's an audience that definitely know you. It's quite clear to see. But let's just say some people who know about business and fashion and art, who have heard your name, give us a bit of a rundown basically who is Katie Erie?
So, I mean, I started in I'll say as soon as I finished my masters, I literally, the first fashion week was my first show from that point. So I think I graduated.
Where did you get a master's from? I didn't even know that myself.
Menswear design, Royal College of Art.
Sick.
It was the best thing I ever did, actually. I still reminisce over that.
Yeah. And I know this is going to sound quite obvious, but it goes without saying that must have been fucking hard to get a master's.
Yeah, well, it's hard to even get into the RCA. And I remember I applied and I wasn't sure if I'd got in or not. You know, I felt like I'd performed well. I wasn't sure. And the whole summer went by, and and I literally found out the week before, and I already had a job at that point. And I was like, oh, maybe. You know, I'd never had money before, so I was like, oh, maybe I just have a job. And my mum was like, don't you fucking dare. Because I actually cried before I went for my interview to the RCA, because I was like, I won't get in, I'm not good enough. And she was like, just please get out of the bus stop and go back to that university and just at least do the interview and just see. And yeah, when I got in, it was amazing. I absolutely loved it. So I was there for 2 years, and it was so grueling, because it's not, you work on your collection for 2 years, but you also, there's so many projects thrown into the mix. So, you know, they work with all kinds of like amazing people come in, like Julie Verhoeven, and to do illustration courses. She was part of the tailoring course, and I don't know, lots and lots of people, from PRs to graphic designers to big brands. And anyway, I won a couple of competitions. I won a Levi's competition.
Wow.
I don't know. yeah, it was great. And then when I showed the collection at the time, it was in 2008, and at that time in fashion, I think Eddie Slimane and Raf Simons were kind of like running the show. So Eddie was at Dior and Raf was just doing Raf. But it was like very red, black and white. It was like that kind of time. And, you know, I basically did my masters and it was all like Swarovski crystal, fox fur, raccoon fur, like extremely flamboyant and absolutely mental. And there was nothing like it at the time. And I remember thinking when I showed, I don't think I'm going to be able to get a job because people are just going to be like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
It was like Galliano level, you know, like wild. And yes, I think I sent my portfolio to Nicola Formichetti, who was Lady Gaga's stylist, like back when. He is part of the Dazed group. And and I was like, oh, hey, if you need me to like custom make anything for any shoots that you do, because I loved all of his editorial. And he was like, oh no, I think I contacted him on MySpace and I was like, oh, you probably don't know who I am. This is my work. I really
MySpace,
going
back.
Yeah, and he was like, he went, of course I know who you are, Katie, because we interviewed you for Dazed, because I didn't realise he was part of that. I was so naive. And he was like, yeah, anyway, do you want to show at Fashion Week? And I was like, what? Completely. And he was like, yeah, just show at Fashion Week. Well, what ideas? What are you thinking? So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do William Burroughs, which is, you know, the writer. Naked Lunch was going to be the theme. So it was all going to be like rent boys, really thin, drugged out rent boys that are like so pale and thin that their insides are basically on the outside. So I did this really visceral collection of like rib cages on the outside and all kinds of stuff. It was great. And basically, I think by this point, I did one before that, and then that was like the main catwalk one. So that was like a big one. And that was it. It was just like went wild, and from that point, the press just went crazy. And it was almost like as soon as I got into the hamster wheel, I didn't know how I was going to get off.
Yeah. So, like, even before we get to that stage, then had you always had like certainty or a mindset that you were going to get into fashion, or would you ever? Because, like, for me, if I'm being honest, coming out of school, I had no idea what I was going to do. Part of the reason why I started a podcast is because I feel and felt that had I had something to listen to, like a podcast interviewing people in fashion, people in art, people in business, people in any like sport, it would have given me some kind of direction or understanding what kind of avenue you want to go down. And so like, I'm just curious, when I speak to successful people like you, I wonder, were you always set on being in fashion, or was you trying to make up your mind as you were going through school?
My mum was desperate for me to be an interior designer because she would seasonally change the house. It was always, she'd decorate one room and then she'd be on to the next, and then she's back to the beginning and it's like starting again. And she used to sit me down and say, what do you think? What do you think? And I'd be like 12, thinking, I'm so fucking stressed, I can't do this again. And she'd be like, you're going to be an artist, you're going to be fabulous. And I think, I really don't want to do this. I wanted to be an artist, I didn't want to be an interior designer. And then I think I was about 17, 18, and I became fascinated with the YBA scene. Damien Hirst, Sarah Lucas, Tracy Emin, you name it, Jenny Savile, like all of those guys. I remember going to the Sensation exhibition and just being absolutely blown away. And I also remember feeling a bit like, fuck, how am I gonna leave my mark? Because this is just so amazing, and I'm so young. I wished that I was older so that I could have been part of that. But obviously that wasn't a thing. So I remember not knowing at that point, because I felt like, for me, in my tiny young mind, I felt like that was the end, that it would kind of like reached the ceiling of art at that point, and I just thought, I don't know how I'll do anything better. So I went to college. after like not failing all my exams, but definitely not doing well, and my mum going absolutely mental. I was like, well, I better go and do a foundation or something so I can get into uni.
Yeah.
And it was a choice between fashion, product design, or art. And the thing that made me think I want to do fashion was, at the time there was a magazine called The Face that, you know, we'd all buy it religiously, absolutely loved it, and there was an advert in there that was shot by Corrine Roitfeld, who was the art director of Tom Ford or Gucci at the time. She was.
Her son isn't Vladimir, is it?
I think so.
He was the guy who him and Andy Van Warbada kind of resurrected.
Don't quote me on that.
No,
if I'm wrong, it's embarrassing. I think so.
I could be completely wrong as well, but I think it's the same lady who she was to do with Vogue. Maybe in Paris. Maybe I've got that completely wrong, but it's the same surname as Vladimir's, and it sounds similar, but yeah, it's the two guys who kind of resurrected the Hambleton market.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, Corrine has always been I've just always adored her from that point, because she art directed that campaign. I don't actually know if she was the art director of Tom Ford or Gucci, but she definitely art directed that Gucci campaign when Tom Ford was at the house. And it was, you probably remember, it was the G shaved into the pubes.
Yes.
So that was her, and that to me was the same level of YBA, because it's like, it's sensation, it's shocking, it's so clever, but it's so beautifully shot. And I just remember seeing that, thinking I could definitely be part of the fashion world, because she was smashing through barriers and just making, you know, something like pubic hair was so taboo. Like at this point, it's like the early noughties. It's still, people weren't even talking about it. And she put that advert out there, and it just changed everything for me. Just like YBA did for my art, it changed it for me in fashion, but just made me go towards fashion and think, yeah, there's so much to do in that world, and I was really excited by it.
I mean, just going off of what you just said there, it's interesting because there's a company which a friend of mine's a part of, and I don't know the guy that well. I don't know him, but I know of him. A guy called Arjun, who owns a company called Protein World, and you probably know them.
No.
All right. Well, anyway, very successful company. Actually, someone I would like to interview at some point. But anyway, one of their adverts going back 3, 4, 5 years ago now was they had a poster which they stuck on really skinny poles, I think, down in the tube, and it said, "Are you Beachbody ready?" And what it was insinuating is, if you were slim like this pole, then you're Beachbody ready. Obviously, anyone which was a bit bigger than that, which most people are, they went absolutely mad, saying, "What are you trying to say? Like, if you're fat, you can't be Beachbody ready." And what I loved about that is that it is marketing and PR in a roundabout way by doing something quite controversial.
It's provocative.
Exactly,
and it creates.
It stirs emotion, and I think I've got the same humour as you, because we both like The Office. We love Ricky Gervais, and we drop it in every so often. But I like things which are quite raw, to the point where people are like, fucking hell, like they get a bit angry by it.
I'm offended.
Yeah, I'm offended. I mean, shut up, you pussy. Yeah, that sort of thing. But you know what? But is fashion, like, does a lot of that happen to draw out emotion?
At the time, yeah. I think in the early noughties, for sure. I think it continued to be tongue-in-cheek, and I think I loved fashion most at that point. I don't show runway at the moment. I don't know if I could handle it, and it's not because I don't care about the environment or, you know, animal cruelty or anything like that. I just think I just don't really feel like these kind of politics should be seasonal, because fashion is, after all, business. And I think people need to go into it knowing that it's a business. You need to sell in order to generate enough money to keep showing, and it's a cycle. And at one point that was really fun for me, and then it stopped being fun because it's just fucking hard work. And it gets more and more serious, and as time was going by, it became kind of unbearable. You know, you have to be so conscious of everything. You don't want to upset anybody. One thing happens and your company is shut down. It's just so fragile. And that's, to me, is not a fun environment. I wouldn't want to, you know, it's almost like, because fashion is kind of an art.
Very much so, yeah.
But it looks like an art, but it's actually a business. And so when people can shut it down as though it's an artistic statement, but actually it's a company that would employ lots of people, so not only are you shutting down something that offended you, you're destroyed, like you are, you know, people are losing their jobs, and now what happens? It's kind of, it just become not the environment that I want to be in right now. And I loved fashion when it was more carefree and fun, and you can be environmental and fun, but at the minute it just seems like fun is not on anybody's agenda in that scene. Or I haven't seen it, or I have, and it's with, you know, young, like, new designers, and I kind of envy that, because they have nothing to lose. So it's just like they're going in, and it is all fun, because you can be, because you've never had money, so you don't know what it is to not have money, to not be able to pay people, and so. It just, it kind of gets more serious as you get into it, but...
Yeah, I was going to actually ask you about the business side of fashion, because like here with Woodbury House, people just see canvas work or they see sculptures, and what people don't appreciate sometimes is a lot more than what meets the eye.
Yeah.
It's like getting the artist out to the public in the right narrative is so important. You can show a bit of art, but if you're expecting them to just buy the art because the way it looks, you will get a proportion of buyers, but the real buyers are people that need to become I guess the narrative needs to hit them right, and they need to be sold to in a roundabout way. I guess fashion's the same, because if you were to design a fella's outfit, or, you know, maybe I'm not even describing it right, but like let's a certain dress or something like that, how would you go about purporting your message over to the audience? That's a hard one to answer, probably.
Do you know what? It used to be easier, because when I started, I'd have to really think about what's the idea. And I'd always go for books, because I always felt like if you went with a book, you could read a book and I could read the same book, and we would paint our characters and they'd be totally different, because what you've conjured up in your imagination will be totally different. So I always felt like it was an original idea. And I always had fun stories. I loved working with a writer, working on the press release, because the press release was the thing that was going to sell the collection. Because much like any of the paintings, you sell the paintings because of the story, who the person was, what he went through, what was happening in his life at that time, and it's just so considered, and that's, people are interested more in the story than the actual, it's just acrylic, or whereas so it was like that in fashion, and everybody listened, and people would buy my stuff because they would know the ideas, and they loved that. They loved how, because they were always fun and silly. I still am obsessed with Irvine Welsh, the writer. If you read any of his books, to me it's like contemporary art in wording.
Okay.
The way they format the page, the titles that he comes up with, they're always hilarious. So I'd kind of took that template for my shows, and I'd give them hilarious names, and even on like the line sheets selling to the buyers, I'd give like the clothing like just hilarious little nicknames and whatever. So it was just always funny. I always felt like people would enjoy getting the lookbooks. They'll be like, what? Higgledy-piggledy t-shirt? What is that? Pig face t-shirt? You know, like just, it was just fun, and people wanted it because they loved the story. But then as time went by and fashion became faster and faster turnover, people didn't care about the idea anymore. So then it becomes about the quality of the clothing. And to get good quality of clothing, you need good factories, you need a lot of money, and you need so much time.
Yeah.
So then you start gaining momentum, you do start making a bit of money, you start ploughing it into all these bits and pieces. And before you know it, it just gets harder and harder, everything gets more and more expensive, people's expectations start going like that, people want it quicker, now, faster, yesterday. And nobody cares about the story anymore, and it just I mean, I don't know. I think now, maybe if you're new and you've got a really exciting background story, it might linger a bit longer, but then all it takes for someone else, and it's just, I don't know, the turnover is so fast now.
Yeah.
It's kind of out of control, but you never know, that might change. But I think it felt like the fashion industry changed overnight. So a lot of me and my friends that were in it, we were like, you just have to be clever. How are you gonna make money? How are you gonna survive? How are you gonna stay relevant? You know, kind of up, sideways. You know, just like how are you gonna keep going? And only a few work that out. I'm one of them.
What we were saying off camera is like the blessing and curse of how we're living today. Because I said this to Dumi actually, who I interviewed last week. We're both like not too far away in regards to our ages, and I said that we started getting into business when Instagram and all the big social media channels wasn't really around. So therefore we got to see how life and the world was from a business point of view without that, and now we can see, obviously we're in it with social media.
Yeah.
Obviously it's really good because we can do things like this, we can get our message out there immediately and people can consume the stuff, but then at the same time people's concentrations drop off very, very quickly and they want instant gratification on certain projects they're working on, and some people forget you need the hard graft. You need to plant a seed today in order for it to grow 6 or 12 months down the line. How have you found that kind of transition in the last decade?
I mean, I didn't really realise how special it was at the time when I first graduated from the RCA. The first person to shoot my clothing was Mario Testino, and it was on Kate Moss, and it was in September issue Vogue. It was just like bam, bam, bam. Now, if I made something, not a chance in hell will that happen again. I mean, that was really fucking lucky. And I believe it was even a cover story. It was just like, it was like jammy bastard kind of stuff. And then I think a few months later, Sienna Miller was wearing a jacket I made on the cover of Vogue. And never did British designers grace the cover of Vogue, let alone little old me as a menswear designer. I mean, it was absolutely mind-blowing, and I think I didn't realise how special that was because I came out and it's all I knew. So I was just, I'd go into newsagents and there'd be like all of the fashion magazines, at least 10 of them, I'd be in there somewhere, whether it's my clothing, an interview, my face or whatever, and I kind of like expected that. It was just like I would almost be disappointed if it wasn't like that. Yeah, which is kind of weird.
So you were in Vogue, GQ,
everyone.
And what's that fit? I mean, we were blown away, Woodbury House, when we got into Vogue Italia a few years ago, and we were honestly we was like beside ourselves. We was like, this is amazing. But for you as an individual to get into there, I mean, you're your own brand anyway. No, that must be pretty. Like, it was feel-good factor.
It was amazing. I was in Vogue. I was shot for Vogue. I was in it. It was amazing. But it was also all I knew. So I kind of I took it for granted, and I didn't ever get above my station or anything like that. I was just like, I've just got to keep working. This has got to keep happening. And the funny thing is, when I had my most press is when I was my most poor. So I had fuck all money. I'd be crying to my mum, oh, can you put some money in my Oyster card? I've got no money for food. But I'd be making a rope dress for Lady Gaga or something. Every bit of money that I had, I was like buying stuff to make for celebrities. I wasn't getting paid for it, but I would, if it's going on the cover of something, then that is payment in itself.
It's like brand equity, as they call it.
Yeah, so I was just, my equity was like up. But my personal life was 2 for $5 bottles, Hackney Wick, living in a warehouse. I mean, I loved it, I wouldn't change it. But basically, I was around before social media and print was king, and I was like happy as a pig in shit. And then I think it kind of like changed around 2011 maybe. Things started to change, like blogging became a thing. And I think a lot of us were quite snobby, and would kind of not really give a shit. I didn't ever think, oh, Susie Bubble has written about me. I couldn't give two fucks about that. I'm like, if it's not in Grazia or Days Are Confused or ID, I really don't care. And then Instagram kind of came about 2012. I can't even remember. I remember I had a boyfriend and he was working for a tech company, and he's like, oh, you should download Instagram, it's really cool. And then it just was wild. The first show that I did with Instagram, that was probably the best selling collection I ever did. And it was just mad. But I do think, I kind of feel like I'm quite special because I managed to do all of that without social media. I don't know, there's a lot of designers out there and I think they're really shit. And I wonder, without Instagram, where would they be? And I'm sure nowhere would be the answer, but I probably would sound bitter. I'm not, it's just a general observation.
But do you know what, it's a bit like, just using Hambleton as an example, Hambleton is like a true artist, does it all freehand and stuff. Now, if you look at a comparable to him today, people say Banksy. Banksy, in the documentary, they say he owes Hambleton a small share in royalties because of all the influence. So Banksy does stencils. I'm not knocking him. I'm just saying he does stencils and then he goes out and does his thing, and I think it's incredible, but it's stencils. You got someone like that does freehand, and for me it reminds me of the same sort of story almost. Like you're a true fashion guru almost. You've got the master's degree. You've had the setbacks. You've come back. You've got into all the big publications before social media, and then you've got other people. I'm not saying shortcutting it. I'm not saying that, and I'm not knocking them. And I think it's a different time.
They've
taken a different strategy, and they've gone to. I mean, look, I do want to mention one person. Obviously, who's now working for Louis Vuitton and stuff. I mean, how has someone like Virgil made that transition from Off-White to someone like Louis Vuitton? Because that seems a bit mad in my own mind. And I'm also jumping something here, which has nothing to do with him. But Louis Vuitton with Supreme, because back in my day when I was growing up, you didn't see these big corporate fashion houses with these lower level kind of
just like Raw Street.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool in many ways, but why do you think that transition's happened?
I think that's because, people with money changed. I guess the kind of people that had lots of money in the 80s are very different to the kind of people that have lots of money in the noughties. Like, I don't even know, what do we call this, the 20s? I don't even know, like, what we call this decade. But, there's a lot of people that become millionaires overnight with online stuff, and I don't even know. I mean, I feel like there's a lot more money with younger people, and they've just got a different taste level. So they're not after Man Ray or, I don't know. Did I say that? I meant Monet. Oh my God, I just did Ricky Gervais without even realising.
Bloody love Mon Ray.
Oh God. Oh, I'm embarrassed. Yeah, so...
It's all good. I've said loads of super things.
Yeah, so I just think that there are people with money that it's just a different type of person with money that maybe didn't exist in the 80s, and they're really into streetwear and pop art, and it's a totally different scene, and their culture levels are very different to... In the 80s, they might want to buy classic oil paintings, might mean something to them, whereas... I mean, I'm just presuming it's young people that are buying these Supreme Louis Vuitton cases, because my mum certainly wasn't interested. No. I mean, and I think, it sold, so they knew that there was a market there. And I think that's, I don't want to devalue Virgil. In fact, I don't think it is what I'm about to say, but I think it's marketing. Nowadays, if you are really good at marketing, you will make it. And I think
I definitely agree with that.
And I think, when I first started working for Kanye, Virgil was always taking beautiful photos, and he had a blog, and so did Jound, who was like the original blog guy. they were always finding beautiful images and uploading, and this was like 2012, you know, like they started when it was all kind of popping off. I imagine Jaron probably started way before, I don't know. But yeah, and I think they just jumped on it, and it was a clever thing to do.
Because not so much fashion or art, but let's say singers. Sometimes I've seen singers on TV, or I've come across them, and they're like amazing, but they just don't ever make it. And then you've got someone else who's like, look, I'm no singer, so I can't really criticise, but they seem a bit average, and they suddenly kind of blow up.
It's just marketing. It's
and
marketing
it's like,
around it.
It's like the marketing and.
Yeah. Because maybe those amazing people, if they caught the attention, it's about money as well. It's like if you've got the money to do it, you're hanging around with the right people, you get seen in the right places. I guess that's like brand equity would be me hanging around with loads of celebrities all the time, and you know, people would think, oh, she's someone, she's
raising the status.
And it's or you don't have that much talent, but you've got someone with fuckloads of money that's going to put it in. Yeah, you're probably going to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I think, you know, Louis Vuitton saw that Supreme, what they were doing was so clever, and they just thought, we'll have a piece of that, and they did it really well. Like, those bags were an insane amount of money, and I'm fairly sure it all just went, so it worked. And now they collab with quite a few artists. Nicolas Ghesquière with Jeff Koons, or when Kim Jones was there and he worked with the Chapman Brothers. Yeah. That was probably my favourite. I think of all the artist collaborations ever, because I love the Chapman Brothers. I love that, and I think it was the 1 year where I made fuck all money. So I didn't get one piece, and I'm still devastated about that. But yeah.
It's also, I feel it's a bit like with Louis Vuitton, kind of like what we're doing here at Woodbury House with you, which is you've got like the typical art buyer today, which is probably a slightly older person, not always, because there are young people buying it, but I'm just saying typically the people we come across is probably your, I don't know, 35, 40 plus, maybe a bit older than that, and they're buying the 200 grand pieces to 300 grand pieces plus. But eventually they're going to maybe stop buying art, they're going to pass away at some point, and their children or the next generation is going to come up. So the way you kind of condition them, or almost, is they can buy the merchandise, the limited editions, that kind of thing. So Louis Vuitton must have seen that in people like Supreme, you know, any of the other, you know, street companies, Palace for example, and started doing collaborations with them. I think that must have been the mindset. Maybe you could support that a bit more. You know a bit more about that than I do.
I think collaborations, to be honest, when I first started doing collaborations, it was because we were skint. Like, all the designers had no money. And then you get a big company saying, hey, do you want to collaborate? You can do a collection. You're not going to say no. You're literally like, oh, Jif, of course I can do that. And we all started doing it, and then it became a thing. And then, you know, actually, you know, when I said, you know, designers had to be clever, because it was either stay arty and just fizzle out because you've got no money, or just get clever and commercial. And that's kind of, so I did that for years. I managed to survive about 5 years doing things like that. And I did love them. I'm not devaluing those companies. I absolutely loved it. But then eventually the bigger companies like Louis Vuitton, you know, they started to ruin it, because they were just like, all the little people were doing their little things, and it's like cool and creative, and then the big brand just went, we'll Monster, have that, boom. Thank you. Yeah. Or we're going to do something so epic, good luck trying to compete. Because everything is a competition, even if you're, you know, fresh out of uni, you're fighting for that kind of airtime, like, look at me, I've got something to say, I'm doing something cool. So you're constantly competing, and I don't know how kids do it now with the marketing thing. Competition with that is just off the scale. And then as it got to the end of like the collaborations started to fizzle out, I was like, I think licensing is the next thing. So you have to like try and be 10 steps ahead all the time. So then I started working with companies doing licensing And yeah,
I know
what's next.
Work with Pretty Green, Matches,
Yep.
River Island.
Yep.
Am I right? IKEA somewhere down there?
Yeah,
IKEA.
I was the first fashion designer to work with IKEA.
Amazing, that's incredible. And then there's a bunch others. I do want to ask you about because when I first met you through Alabella, so shout out to her who owns one by one around the corner. Woo! And I definitely want to get her on my podcast at some point, talk about veganism and all that. You told me about the story about Kanye West when you started working with him, and I think it inspired me, and I'm not bullshitting you, it really inspired me because I say to my sales guys, not at this company, just down the road, I always say that you always got to, I know it's going to sound like a dad statement, and a bit wanky as well, but like always got to try your hardest and work really hard and be positive and upbeat and do the best you can do and serve your clients, everything else, because you never know who's watching in a good way. Mm-hmm. And I feel that the story you told me about Kanye is kind of the same thing. Yeah. You were hustling, you were doing your thing, you were being the best version of you and in your craft, and then suddenly you got approached. So if you could just tell me the story again, because I love it.
I'll try and remember like how I told it. So I think first thing was that I was not into hip hop or rap or anything like that.
You were like a rock girl, weren't you?
Yeah, indie rock, I was all about that. But my best friend has always been in hip hop, like absolutely obsessed, blah, blah, blah. In fact, most of my friends are guys. And one day I got a text or something from my friend saying, "Oh my God, you're on Kanye's blog." And I was like, yeah, what, the guy that wears velour and the Venetian blind glasses? Cool. I didn't care, and they were completely, and my friend Jay was livid because he was like, how can he be writing about you? You don't even appreciate this. And then I think about a week later I got an email from someone and the title was called "Hey, it's Kanye." And he said, "Oh, I really like your work, I love what you do, blah, blah, blah." And the email was something pastel, and because I didn't know that was him and Virgil's brand, I sat there and thought, my friend is taking the piss out of me. I'm not going to be mugged off and let him think that I'm going to be like, ooh, someone famous is emailing me. So I sent quite a short, blunt, rude response. Because in the email, he'd said that he was in Japan. And I said, I don't even think I said hello. I think I went, "Oh yeah? You like it that much? You can fly me to Japan. I'll show you myself if you want." And just sent that. And which is so rude, and I'd never do that. But it's because I just thought, I can't have my friend take the piss out of me.
Yeah.
And then I got a reply immediately saying how much he loved McQueen and like really going into depth. I mean, it was like a really long email about his love for it and how people take the piss out of him because, you know, like a piss out of Kanye, you know, because he's got money. And I was thinking, oh my God, he's saying that because I've said fly me to Japan. And I was so mortified because as I was reading it, it dawned on me that it wasn't my friend Jay, it actually was him. And I was just like, oh my God. So rather than say, sorry, I was only joking, I just changed my personality and just said, okay, cool, you know, if you're in London, da da da. And I really didn't think anything would come of it. And then just, I don't know, it was so quick. It was like 2 weeks later, I'd had a house party. It was like pretty wild. A lot of drugs. It was like proper Skins style, you know, like
invite
I had a friend,
me next time.
Like a friend like asleep next to the fridge and just like gross. And then I got a call saying, "Hey, it's Kanye," and and I was so shocked because it's not because he was calling me. It's because the house was disgusting, and I knew that it meant that he was in London. I had a bit of a hangover, and he was like, "Oh, can we come to your studio now?" And I was like, okay, sure. And as soon as I put the phone down, I was like, get the fuck out, everybody get out now. And sort of like tried to clean the flat as quick as possible. It probably still smelled of cigarettes when he got there. And he walked in with Virgil. And that was kind of like the beginning of our sort of working relationship. So he turned up, he was with Virgil. It was the time when he was wearing those like big pyramid rings.
Okay.
And he was just showing me all of his music videos, and Yeah, he was cool. He was so enthusiastic. I almost couldn't fit all the information in.
Yeah.
And then he left, and I remember he kept contacting me after that. It got to the point where I was just like, oh God, because I was so broke, I can't even tell you. And I was thinking, please just give me a fucking job. I can't just keep answering your questions. I just want a job. And and he was like, I think I kind of stopped answering his calls, which was quite rude.
I think I remember from the when you told me, you was like, look, out of like a bit of frustration.
Yeah,
I can't keep on just answering questions if you're not going to fucking pay me.
Yeah.
So just fuck off,
Yeah.
if not.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah. So I stopped answering the phone, and then about, I don't know, maybe it was like 4 months later or something, he called me, and when I answered, I went, you better be ringing me to give me a job. And he went, yeah, I am. And I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting. And it was kind of like literally go, go, go from that point. And I feel like for years, I never got out of that. Go, 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 go. It was like everything was like the deadline was yesterday. And it's like, actually we've got 6 months, but every day, every 10 minutes, it felt like the deadline was coming. And it was absolutely crazy, but still some of the more fun times of my life.
It must have been really exciting, but yeah, quite overwhelming with a bit of pressure every so often. You must have felt like you're on edge a bit.
Oh God, yeah. So because we were working at the Turn Mills in Islington, and I was not coping well because I was I'd always been self-employed or at uni, so I kind of had my own schedule, and all of a sudden, I've got this person ringing me all the time. I have to answer because I'm under contract, I'm employed. But those phone calls aren't coming between like 9 in the morning to 6 at night. They're coming at 3 a.m, 6 a.m, I don't know, 11 o'clock at night. Where are you? Come to the studio. It was just like, it was almost like you had to be on his time.
Regimented, like, for him.
Yeah, and I mean, if anyone that knows me knows that I usually like to go to bed at 9 o'clock. I'm just that person.
Honestly, and, if it was up to me, I'll be in bed between 9 and 9:30 at night.
Yeah.
But I can't.
Yeah.
I don't get it. I'm not allowed to.
Yeah. It was hard, and I remember he'd call, and my lip would just automatically swell up with stress. And he'd have no idea, but I'd just be standing there like with my top lip would just be like, it was such a weird reaction. So I was like, I better go to the doctors, got some antidepressants, because it was just, but they weren't really working because I wasn't sleeping. And I think it got to the point, it was the first show we were doing, and I knew that he was going to Paris. And so I thought, great, I can at least sleep until 8 a.m. and get to the studio for 8:30. And I got there, and he sort of like appeared out of nowhere, and it made me jump. It was like my parent that just caught me out, and he was like, we missed you because we were getting emotional with a pair of trousers last night. Where were you, kind of thing. It was like he wasn't telling me off, but he kind of was, and I just burst out crying, just like, I'm not dealing well. I haven't slept. My pills aren't working. I was like, I'm mental and I need tablets to be normal, and I can't because I'm not sleeping. And then he like gave me a hug, and he was like, oh, it's okay, I take tablets too. So then when we were doing the show in Paris, it was amazing. It was like there'd be like 15 French seamstresses, like all in their 60s, 70s, 80s, sewing through the night, 3 a.m. Virgil would put on Waka Flocka Flame music, so there'd be I go hard in the motherfucking paint. And then it's something, I can't remember the words, but it's like, it mentions like dicks and all kinds of stuff, and it's just like these old ladies just like sewing away with this like mental music just like pounding through the studio. And it was just so hilarious and so wild. And then he'd kind of appear again out of nowhere, and he'd be like, are you okay? Do you want to sleep? But I'd be working in my pyjamas because you're not going home. But yeah, I've kind of digressed. It's just a great story. I just had to tell everybody that.
So, like, how long was you working together for?
So we did that show, and then we did another show. Do you know what? I feel like I've worked on projects for him across 8 years, bits and pieces.
And I think when I first heard a story from you, was this before the Yeezy kind of at Nike?
Yeah.
And that's when he was transitioning over to Adidas, is that right?
That happened kind of after the shows, I think. So he'd already done lots of collaborations and...
Because his first kind of brand, I don't know if it was the one you just mentioned, wasn't really taking traction, was it? And then it was the second brand. This is all from memory, what you're saying.
So Domdo was the one that I worked on, and it was, there was a lot of us, lots of great creatives in one room. I'm not saying I'm a great creative, I'm saying he tended to go for like incredible people. So you'd walk in the room and know that whoever is doing what is the best of the game, and sometimes that wasn't always the best
team.
Yeah, because there was egos and things like that. Everyone would try, but sometimes it can be quite hard. But he tried to make fashion the same way he would make an album, and I think it works with music and musicians. But it was amazing. I'm not saying that didn't work. I fucking loved it. I absolutely loved working on those shows. It was such an exciting time.
You must have travelled a lot as well.
Not really, because not when it came to the Paris shows.
Okay.
It was literally just the UK, because he was based in the UK for that time.
Okay.
And then after that, projects like anything to do with Yeezy, again, that's Paris. But then it started to be New York when I made loads of coats for the Kardashians. And
I was going to ask you about that. Yeah. I mean, did you get to meet them?
I've met Kim quite a few times.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's lovely.
I was going to ask because when you see people like, I've interviewed a few people now, and some of them are like Anton Ferdinand, for example, Rio Ferdinand's brother, right? If you see these footballers on TV, you get an impression how they might be.
Yeah.
In actual fact, I've met Rio a bunch of times, and I know Anton quite well now as a friend. They're fucking great guys, like really, really, really cool guys. And I've overheard people speak, not particularly about them, but like other footballers, and think, you got no fucking idea just because you see them on TV. So obviously I see like the big shows are on. She's obviously married to Kanye, got kids anyway. Yeah. What is she like, and what are the whole family like?
Well, I haven't met any of the others, just Kim, and she is lovely. There's not really too much I could say because, I've met her always in a work environment. Like there's always cameras everywhere and they document everything. So, and it's hard to get a connect. And also I'm quite professional, so I didn't ever try and be pally. I think there was only one time, and I think that was because I was living in LA to work for him. And I was doing loads of book research, and I bought a book for North, and when she came in I was like, I've got this book for North, it's really cool, it's got like crazy kind of tiger illustrations, and she liked it, and she's like, oh, so sweet. But I don't like that, like trying to be mates. Yeah,
the crossing over between business and...
he's my boss. It's just felt, keep it all... I'm very like that though. There's a lot of people that would try and be friends. I think I'm so hyper aware of everybody wants that opportunity to make an impression on the Kardashians but I'm a designer, that's what I'm there for.
What was the jackets like? The
fur, well, shearling, so I mean that was a really wild story actually.
Did that dovetail off of the relationship with Kanye, or was that a completely separate project?
Yeah, because, basically that was supposed to be for Yeezy, all of those coats. And one thing about me that used to drive everybody mental when we're at term meals is that I'd always design the most ridiculous, over-the-top things. Like I did this huge fur rucksack that went down the runway in Paris, and the whole of it was like spring, summer, and it was like... what the fuck, a fox fur rucksack for spring, summer? That's ridiculous. That piece actually got the most press, So, and it was a really cool bag. But I always did like the wild stuff. And I feel like it kind of pissed a lot of the designers off in that thing, because they're kind of like doing very serious, modest pieces. And I was like, let's do, I don't know, like biker chaps and put like a neon red bum in it, and it kind of ended up looking like a gorilla bum, but it was cool.
Yeah.
I don't know, I did loads of like just lots of wild things, and yeah, it just used to annoy people. I kind of annoyed a lot of people. But I think it's just because I was always myself, and a lot of people can't, they're not comfortable in their own skin. I think that's just a fashion thing, I don't know. But
yeah.
So I'd come in with my crew of like 1,000 interns, and we'd just be so excited all the time, and sometimes I guess that's annoying, I don't know. And probably when they just thought they'd got rid of me, I then got to New York. We literally landed in New York. It was like 10:30 at night, New York time, so it's like by this point it's 2:30 UK time, or I don't know, I can't think. It was late, and she wasn't my assistant, she's a production manager. We were so exhausted because getting these coats made, we had no time, and it was hard work. And like one of them, we had to actually hair straighten the coat because it was like this. The fur had a slight wave, and he was like, "Can we make that straight?" And the reason he always employed me is because I was always like, "I can do that." Even if it's the most impossible thing, we'll make it happen. Yeah. So of course we get there, and I haven't heard from him. So I'm thinking, great, oh my God, we're allowed to sleep. He's actually changed. We're going to go to the hotel. He's going to let us sleep. And it was like 5 minutes before we got to the hotel, he rung and he was like, oh no, he messaged, and he went, hey, where are you guys?
No.
And I looked at Mivani and I grabbed her shoulders and I was like, right, I'm really sorry to say, but he just contacted me. I was like, don't worry, technically it's 4:30 a.m. In 2 hours we'd be getting up anyway, so we just got to get into the frame of mind of like, we're starting the day from now, because we're just going to get there and it's going to be like, just go. And I was like, we're just going to have to power through. We can do it. And we got to the studio with bright pink and fleshy toned shearling jackets, floor length. I mean, I feel like everybody's seen them anyway. And loads of latex. We actually made loads of latex pieces as well. So we went in like, hiya, like usual, like, oh God, the orange haired, like loud laugher is here with her purple haired production manager with, oh my God, what the fuck, they've just got mental fur coats, and the whole collection is sports, like charcoal coloured, and I don't know, I can't remember, but it was like murky browns and absolutely not this. Yeah. And the stylist, I think it was Paul McKenna, I think that's his name anyway. He's very high up, and I think he was like trying to put things in looks, and he sort of looked at that and was just like, is this yours? And I was like, yeah, and he was like, okay. And then he was trying to take Kanye aside and be like, we can't use that, like how is that even relevant? And then I felt mortified, because I was like, but we've been emailing and this is what he asked for. I haven't just, as I felt like everybody there remembered me from London, and just thought, here we fucking go. She's arrived with the most ridiculous things that make no sense. And then I think the stylist kind of said, let's not put them in the show, we'll dress the Kardashians. And I was absolutely over the moon, because, there still are, like...
And did you get, like, personally, like, that was not so long ago, so did you get a lot of people approaching you after that from, like, publications or anything like that? No?
No.
Really?
It was so weird. It was really weird. I'm not really sure what happened, because I did a lot of things for him, like fashion stuff, and I never posted about it. It was kind of not, he didn't ever say don't post it, but it was kind of like, I'm getting paid, so you don't tell the world, you just do your job. And I was quite respectful of that. Well, I always was. I didn't ever... Yeah. I didn't come on podcasts and talk about it, that's for sure. But yeah, so I think the day after the show, because Balmain had done all of these kind of like crystal and pearl embellished pieces, and I think actually the night of the show happened and everybody loved the coats and it was like a big thing. It was way bigger than what I thought it was going to be. I was still really excited that I just bumped into Little Kim. Like that was like my kind of highlight.
Yeah.
And then the coats, it was like, oh, okay, cool. And then my friend was like, oh, you should post a picture. That's really cool. And I thought, you know what? I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure I can. So I posted something, and then it was like Balmain got all the credit for my work because his outfits were underneath my coats. So then people were tagging Balmain and everything, and I was just fucking fuming, to be honest. But what can you do? Like, you know, it was a job. You can't. You just gotta. Yeah, I think I felt more humiliated because I was just like, I really hope people don't think that they're not mine.
Yeah.
But that's never. Yeah, I don't know. It was a weird one.
So you've had like really loads of cool things, and yeah, just like being in Vogue, obviously working with them, Kanye. I didn't even know you lived abroad in LA and places. Was that the coolest project you worked on, or because I know you mentioned George Condo? Yeah,
well, George, this is still my favourite story, and it probably always will be. I don't know. I'm such a George fan.
George Condo. I mean, my business partner Michael, that's his favourite. I mean, to be honest, it's definitely in my top 5. Some of these pieces now are going for like ridiculous money, like 5 million, 10 million, maybe more. So to work, or being even in the same arena as that guy is just incredible.
Do you know, it's so funny because now I'm thinking like how I'm going to answer the question. I'm like, I love fashion and I loved so much about it, but I always think my highlights within that world are actually the artists that I met. So basically, I think it was when we were at the Turnmills and George Condo was showing at the Hayward Gallery, and I just turned up to work and I said to Kanye, oh, what are you up to tonight? And he said, oh, my friend's got a gallery opening, so I'm going to go and perform for him. And I think because we'd been, you know, like you work in the same office every day, there was no hierarchy. So it's almost like when I asked the question, it's like I was just asking my mum, or it could be anyone. So when they say, oh, my friend's opening a gallery, you'd think like low level, like, you know, just a little something in Brixton, just going to pop over. And I was like, oh, what is it? And he was like, George Condo's thing. And I was like, oh, please let me come. And he was like, yeah, of course you can. So I went, and I was like, oh, can I come? But can I please meet him? I just want to meet him, because in my mind, when I was a kid, he's exactly what an artist would be in my mind. You know, like that kind of tobacco sounding voice box.
Right.
Like wild, kind of, I don't know, kind of looked like he'd been illustrated by Quentin Blake, you know? I don't know, and just kind of crazy. I was so...
A bit weathered, a bit, you know, a bit yeah, like in a not in a disrespectful way, but, you know, just been...
Yeah, just like the older guy, lives in New York, got that kind of voice, and just and really fun, and like loves a drink, and so anyway, so I went and I was so excited. And then after, Kanye had disappeared, and I was like, what the fuck? So I was like, where's the VIP area? And I was like, hello? And I kind of like forced my way through because I thought, I am not meeting him. And when I got round there, they were both rapping. It was so funny.
Kanye and George Condo?
Yeah.
Is he any good?
Yeah, yeah.
He is.
He's got such a good sense of humour. So I've just loved it. I met him and he was lovely, and then they were like, oh, we're going back to the Ritz. So I was like, oh, can I come? So we all went and we just carried on drinking there, and at that point I think I was talking to Kanye about something, and I was like, oh, you know, you'd probably really like Jake and Dinos Chapman. And I had the fucking Hell book in my bag. I don't know why I was carrying it around with me. I was kind of carried inspirational weird stuff with me everywhere all the time, and so I got my book out, and at the time I think it was like £300 for the book, which, you know, felt like a lot of money for me back then. And we were talking away and he was loving it, And then we were drinking, and then he put his glass down, and it was like, had the wine, he put like a wine ring stain on it. But we both laughed, and he was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And I was like, well, if it was anyone else, I'd be pissed off, but I have this book, and now it's got a wine stain, but it's from you, so it's
all right.
Quite cool.
Yeah.
And anyway, and then I don't know how long later it was. Maybe it was a year, maybe it was 2 years, I don't know. But I was still working with him loosely, and he said that he was coming to London. He was going to the White Cube, didn't want to come. He was going to meet Jake and Dina Chapman. So I was like, yes, I want to come with you. So I went and met them, and that's just kind of like a little side bit.
Amazing.
Story. But I loved that because, you know, I was such a huge fan of that.
Yeah.
But back to the New York time, when I'm doing all these kind of coats, I also kind of want to say as well that when we got to New York and we dropped off all these coats, the job's never finished at that point. He's like, okay, because they were doing all these mink coats for Naomi Campbell and all the other like majors were wearing them. And he was like, so can you do that? And I was like, okay, is there a fur factory around here? Do you have a fur factory? Do you have a fur machine? And then he's like disappeared, and I'm like, where's the project manager? And I'm like, Kim is not Kim Kardashian, it's this woman called Kim Schwab. And I was like, do you have a fur factory? Do you have the fur? Do you have the pelts? What? And she was like, no, just figure it out. And I was like, fucking hell. And in the end, I had to go to all of these thrift stores to buy these mink coats. And it was ridiculous. I was going to, I must have gone to about 15 markets in one day.
Jeez. And
the second we like literally sat down like that, my phone started ringing, and he was like, hi, where are you? And I was like, hey, we're coming. And we took them to the studio and started, that's it. There was no machines. That was the next drama. And by this point, it's like 10 o'clock at night or something like that. I'm like, how the fuck are we going to make these outfits? So then I had to try and find, bearing in mind I don't live in New York, I didn't know anyone that lived in New York. I was just like, oh my God. So I just went to the fur district the next morning to find someone that would let us work in their factory and use all their machines and stuff like that. We were so lucky. And then when we'd got them finished, he was like, okay, I want you to take some of these coats to George Condo's studio. He's going to paint them. I was like, okay, great, cool. So excited. I was kind of thinking that he'd be like, Virgil, can you take them? You know, like, I didn't think it was going to be like, can you take them? I was so excited. So I got to the studio, and he's kind of, I don't know if he's hungover, I don't know, but he's hyper and he's excited. And there'd been like a listening party or something the night before. I'm not sure, something. And apparently George was standing there. It was like me, Mavani, his assistant. It was, I think, 4 or 5 of us. And he was with a pencil drawing these waitresses. And he was like, they had these big cone tits. And he was like drawing them like, and they were the funniest pictures. And he was like, they were magnificent. They were, and anyway, so then he's like looking at me, and he's like, okay, so we've got to paint these coats. I'm going to draw big tits. We're going to do big tits for Chloe on this coat. And he's like, what colours? And before I answer, he says, I'm thinking this, and pointed to one of his canvases, it was stunning. And I'm not going to say no, because you can't say no to Picasso. You just like, okay, cool.
Yeah. So
I kind of like, we leave the coats there, and I'm still buzzing off the fact, I'm just buzzing. And then I think we probably went back to the factory to keep working on the mink coats. And then we go to pick up the jackets from George's, or I think I took some photos and sent them to Kanye. And then I was like to Mavani, okay, let's go for lunch. Or like, it must have been 8 o'clock. And then just as we sit down, he rings, and I'm like, okay. Same as usual. Except this time, he absolutely he just went ape shit because the colours were wrong. How dare you decide colour is my thing. You can't decide. Who the fuck do you think you are? Da, da, da.
This is Kanye saying it to you?
Yeah, he was giving me a proper dressing down.
And when he goes crazy, I mean, is it quite intimidating? He's like, ah.
Oh, we've all been told off. Like, there are people that work for him and you think, oh, they must be, no one escapes the telling off. Everybody is told off. And everybody is dressed down in front of the whole studio. So I think over the years I got a really thick skin. So when he was saying it, I was thinking, fucking hell. But I just went, okay, I'm really sorry, you are right. I'll speak to George and see what we can do. And I just kept saying, I'm sorry, I know you're right, I'm sorry. And then I was like, I'll get it fixed. And he was like, okay. Because I kind of, I mean, it went on for a while. I was probably like, I was in control, but I was probably bright red, like. And then when I put the phone down, Mavani was like, is everything okay? And I went, what's funny about what we do is that if anybody else got that phone call, they would be having a fucking breakdown right now. I was like, let's just have a quick drink.
Take the edge off.
We'll deal with it. And that's kind of, that's kind of how the rest of that week went. But I just loved it. And I think my funnest experiences have been meeting the artists. I always have really good stories. I don't really have a good one with the Jake and Dinos Chapman one. That wasn't great. I think they thought I was just like his little assistant or something. But it's fine.
So like George Condo are like amazing. You mentioned earlier Mario Testino was one of the best photographers ever.
I didn't ever meet.
No. Oh, him.
Yeah.
So who would you say in the like top 5 like coolest big blue chip sort of names, or anyone that kind of influenced you or got you excited?
Someone that probably wasn't around long enough to get a blue chip would be Amy Winehouse, who came to my first ever after party.
That's incredible.
So
obviously you met her.
Yeah, so she came by herself to my party.
Wow.
Because she loved what I did. And I never really get to tell that story.
That's fucking legendary.
Yeah, so basically my friend Sergio, he was like my best mate, he still is. And he helped me put together, he was like, right, we're going to do it in a pub in Camden. Because, everything's East London. And he was like, fuck it, let's do it Camden. We're Camden. Everybody can come to us. And, I was so naive. Do you know, I'd never do that now. Because, people would be like, ugh. There's certain areas that people don't go. And I just thought, yeah, fuck it, why not? I can't even remember the name of the pub, to be honest. And it was absolutely packed. And she came in and she was just at the bar by herself, just doing shots of vodka. It was mental that she was even there. I think I was too hammered, to even sort of register how major that was. It was just like, oh, cool.
Yeah.
So her, for sure. I don't know.
Because in that world of fashion, it is all interlinked almost, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know, because it's about impressions, I guess. I kind of feel like I'd need to think about that. I can't. I mean, the thing is, because I used to go to GQ Man of the Year every year, and there'd be everybody from fucking Elton John to, I don't know, Iggy Pop.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many major, all the world's majors just go there for that. So even if I don't get to meet them, I'm kind of excited just to be in and amongst it all, feeling the energy of these people. Yeah. I mean, Tracy Emin.
Very cool.
Not the meeting, not the kind of connection I'd have hoped, but I think she just is she's kind of closed. Because I've been to so many parties, and I was part of that GQ circuit, so she was always at them because her and Dylan are best friends, and so it kind of, I feel like even if I see her now, I kind of go like that. And I'm not sure if she waves back or if she scowls a bit, I'm not sure, but I'll keep doing that because I do love her. But I don't know. I think it gets to a certain point where there's, oh God, So I've just remembered, this is quite major. It was in 2012. I'd done this t-shirt, Screaming Cheetah t-shirt, and Rihanna had worn it to Wireless Festival or something like that, I don't know, in London, and it went everywhere, like everyone wanted that t-shirt. It became the bane of my life. I couldn't fucking stand it, but bread and butter, so
yeah.
And before it become really annoying, Kanye was playing a London festival, and Jay-Z and Beyonce were going to be there, and Rihanna, and Rita Ora. So I basically, oh no, actually it might be, I don't even know, there's so many things that happened around that time, but I remember I can't remember who I went with, it was probably Kanye, and after him and Jay-Z performed, we all went backstage, like the tent, and I think it was Jay-Z's birthday, and it was like purely by accident. I was talking to people, and then all of a sudden I was next to Jay-Z, and then all of a sudden it was like, it had been planned not for me to be right there, because they probably were thinking, who the fuck's this person? But then Rihanna and Beyonce sang happy birthday to him.
Wow.
And I was just standing right there like a complete Burke, thinking, I find things like that really uncomfortable, you know, like, who is that? It was an accident. I didn't mean to be standing there at that time. I really don't like that kind of thing, but that was quite cool. But that wasn't really a meeting. I don't know. Mike Dean, I loved him as well.
Yeah.
He produced a lot of Kanye's albums, and he produced Tupac, and he, you know, I met a lot of people on the road with that, and my own thing as well.
And also, like the travelling, you mentioned, because I remember hearing you once say that you was working in China for a while.
Yeah.
Obviously, LA, here, New York. I mean, what's some of the best places you've worked at or had to go to?
I think
go
Shanghai,
there to get some influence or something.
Shanghai's up there as like one of the weirdest places I've ever worked. I've really loved it because I just kept thinking, when weird things happened, I just kept thinking, this is living. Well, I'm actually living because I don't know what the fuck's going on. And I found myself at 11 o'clock at night running from a taxi because there was such a communication shutdown. He'd tried to drive off with me halfway out, and I literally rolled out the taxi and sprinted off. I sort of knew where I was, but I didn't really know. And as soon as I was on the run, I was thinking, oh my God, are they going to chop my hands off? Because this is basically stealing. And I was hiding in shadows of trees. It was so dark and it's so intimidating, Shanghai. And I kept seeing the car and I was thinking, he's going to fucking kill me. So I was running down an alley, I was getting chased by dogs, and eventually I managed to find where I lived. And I think I got in and cried because it had been so shocking. And then I started laughing because I was just like, what the fuck is my life? Yeah, I mean, that was kind of weird, lots of weird things. It was very different. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. I could tell you, but I mean, we're going on and on here. But just to sort of like give you an idea, every time I went to China, I think it's not going to be weirder than the last trip, and it always was. And I remember the last night, because we all got fired because our ideas were too mental, and it was a load of Brits, and we're all very loud, we're happy people, but over there they're very conservative, and like even if you wear shorts, which one of my team's this gay guy is very flamboyant, he'd wear like little shorts, and they'd point at the trousers and go and it was just weird. It was like going back to school or something. I had to keep the music down, and we weren't allowed to be jolly, and it would never have worked. But anyway, so on the last night, we're like, let's go for dinner to sort of be like the end of this mental adventure. And we're sitting there, and it's a gorgeous restaurant. There's like, you know, the Chinese kind of lantern-y things and umbrellas hanging from the ceiling. And everything looks normal. Well, not normal, but, you know, like how you'd expect like an Asian kind of restaurant. And there's tables of like men in suits kind of everywhere, and everything looks normal apart from the fact that they're all drinking out of baby bottles with teats.
What the fuck?
Exactly. And we sat there and I just thought, thank you so much for the memories.
Yeah. It's like you're on heroin or something, and looking around like, what is going on, or acid.
Yeah, I mean, it was crazy and I loved it. But after that, I thought, you know what, I've been moving and shaking for so long, I need to slow down a bit and just kind of like get all my ducks in a row, because the fashion industry had gone absolutely bonkers. This was only last year, and I just thought, I need a new focus. I need to do something else because I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I felt exhausted. I looked 100. And I was like, just get me back to the UK. I'm moving to the country. I'm getting a fucking dog, and I'm just going to stay still for at least a year. Yeah, and
now you're with us.
Now I'm fat. I'm miserable. No, not really.
The dogs are making you
dogs
bloody.
are driving me mental.
You lose your hair.
Yeah.
So now you're with us, and this is a good transition into talking about, just briefly, about what we're doing together.
Yeah.
So you've been with us now for almost 3 months, I think. Yeah, 3 months. Yeah. And the whole point of, well, just to give the audience an idea, Woodbury House is going through like a second phase. We've been running for about 5 years as a brand, and we're going through our 2.0 version. So next year we're launching a new website, new shop online. Yep. And originally we wanted to get fashion companies and artists to collaborate, and Woodbury House would kind of present that.
Yeah,
rather than do that, because it was
getting messy.
Yeah, minefield, and it was a bit complicated. We decided to have just you as the in-house designer. So, just for the audience, what is that looking like, and what's the concept?
What we've been doing is we've been researching artists, graphic designers, photographers, every kind of medium of art, because, you know, this is incredible. But what does this mean to an 18-year-old that's got a bit of money, but they're not interested in this? They want they want collectibles, they want cool poppy stuff with, you know, short, quick, fun stories that kind of, because, you know, it's like the Instagram generation. They want stuff, they want cool stuff. You know, they, like me, I can't afford that, but I would definitely buy something if we're collaborating with someone super cool and it's a limited run. And I feel like, you know, fashion's become boring. Like, you know, do we really want to keep buying clothes? I feel I get more satisfaction if I buy a piece of art, and I feel like that's becoming a thing. I think a lot of people want to invest in art. So we're talking to Night Watch Studio, who I've worked with before, and I just love them. They're from Portland. They make all these really fun graphics. They collaborate with really cool people, and there's a collection of them, and they create a zine, and it's just super fun. And I feel like it really talks to the younger generation that just wants something super fun, silly, bright and colourful. And I mean, I love what they do. So it's kind of like a nice introduction. We're going to get them to do something exclusive. So you are buying art, but you're also buying limited tees, limited hoodies, and everything they do is kind of limited anyway. So everything I buy, I feel like, it's special.
Yeah.
And I feel like them collaborating with an art gallery kind of makes it more special. So we're going to work with them. We're going to work with an artist called Boy Kong, who is a street artist from New York. He does really beautiful illustrative work, and he's kind of like, he goes across a lot of mediums. So he works in watercolour. Put the bins out.
I thought that was a alarm for when Kanye was about to call you.
Yeah. Do not answer.
Warning. No sleep alert.
Yeah. So Boy Kong, New York artist, works across lots of mediums. It does a lot of watercolour, does a lot of spray kind of art, works with wood and carves out these like amazing dragons and kind of like
incredible.
feeds horsehair through it. It's like fine art, it's sculpture, it's it's graphic. It's such a good mixture of a lot of things, and I feel like I'm not sure what the outcome's going to be yet. I know what product I want it on, and I'm excited to see what he comes up with. We are also hopefully going to be working with Mary Lou Fair, who does sculpture and a lot of screen prints, and she's worked with Instagram, Nike, Google. She's really established and does a lot of beautiful, cool things. And we're also going to work with a guy called Bran, it's a totally different demographic, but we want to appeal to lots of different ages, and I feel like his is more serious art, and he's a sculpture artist. He works with AK-47s and covers them in butterflies, and he's got an interesting story. And
he's been on my podcast.
Yeah. So I feel like, it's kind of like hitting all of these kind of hotspots, and we hope that in the future that every 4 months we'll be introducing new artists, and it's kind of the start of something really fun and exciting. And I don't think anybody else is doing it, so
we're definitely looking to blaze our own trail in this sector with the help of yourself and other key people, and I think it's going to make the brand vibrant, energetic, fun, and I think we're going to hit the serious art collectors as well as the new era which are coming up, and they're going to be the serious collectors later on, and they dip their toe in the water with the collectibles, with the merchandise, with the limited editions. I think it's going to be really, really fun. Yeah. Right, one or two more things. So if people were to find you, Katie, where would they find you if you wanted them to find you, of course?
Well, I mean, my Instagram's never really been like my work. It's just me, my dogs, and stuff that I like. If you want, you get Katie Erie, at Katie Erie, that's it.
Okay.
That's me. But don't be expected to be bowled over, because I never post if I'm with, anyone that would be deemed to be famous or anything. I'm not that kind of poster. I literally only post stuff that I love. Or, if they're my mates, I'm very secretive.
Yeah. And then you got your website?
Yeah, I've got my website, katieerie.co.uk. Haven't updated it in about 2 years, but feel free to have a ganders.
And anyone like the younger demographic, this personal goal of mine with all my guests is to try and inspire people, maybe coming out of school and they're limited on what they believe they can achieve or the direction. Anyone like wanting to follow a similar path to you, like getting into fashion, being a creative, any kind of short sound bites of information you can give them? Yeah,
so for me, I'm going to talk
basically advice.
Yeah, my advice is going to be to people that come from nothing, because I came from nothing. Grew up in a council estate, had fuck all, like literally, I'm not joking, I had three brothers, my mum was single parent with 4 kids. We had nothing. And I remember, I never got to go on school trips and things like that, and I've always felt a bit hard done by, but at the same time I was quite happy-go-lucky, so I'm too. But I remember when I went to university, it was the first time that I kind of was around people that came from middle class or, more successful working class backgrounds and stuff, and it was weird, because I don't know, I remember I didn't really know what to think, but I always felt poor. It was like really weird. And I think there was many times I'd be like, I can't do it anymore, and my mum would always say to me, never, ever, ever let money get in the way of something you want to do. If you want to do it, you'll find a way, you just got to fucking do it. And she never really said how I was going to get this money.
But it's the best attitude ever, yeah.
And it worked, because I was I'd be upset, sure, she's not helping me out. But she can't, so I've got to make it happen. When I did my masters, I remember when I got in, you have to pay. I can't remember if it's like, it might have even just been $2,500 or $4,000 a year or something. And I remember thinking, how the fuck am I going to get that? Plus a deposit to move to London, and oh God, I'm going to have to live with this boyfriend that I fucking hate because it's the only way that I'm going to half the rent, and all this stuff. And my mum, I remember saying, I don't think I should go, and she was like, don't you dare pass up on this opportunity because of money. When have we ever let that get in our way? And so I
love that.
I can't sit here and be like, oh, you want to be a famous fashion designer? This is how you're going to do it. because every designer has its own individual path. But what I can do is speak to all the people that kind of come from nothing and just say, don't let money get in your way of any career. If you want it, you just go and get it. And
my quote then, this is perfect going on to this next part. This is the last thing I'm going to ask you. I say, be happy, never content. I've run sales companies, and everything about sales is nothing to do with the product. It's nothing to do with the brand. It's nothing to do with your, maybe slightly with your experience, but it mostly comes down to your attitude. So everything that we used to speak about was positive, being bold, being excited, and literally working your fucking ass off. So be happy, never content was like a saying that I kind of come up with back many years ago. I've got my own interpretation. What does be happy, never content mean to you?
Just never give up, basically. You can be happy, but you can still have motivation. And it's like, I don't know, like I said, like with the fashion industry, it changed overnight. Didn't mean that I wasn't going to be creative anymore. Just keep going. We just got to be on it.
On it,
What's
mate.
next? What's next? What's happening?
All right, wicked. Katie, thank you very much for coming on. Big respect. Nice one. And I'm looking forward to the next few weeks because the projects are going to unfold at Woodbury.
It's all coming together.
I know there's been a bit of like challenges and bit of pressure here and there, but I think it's been healthy.
Yeah.
So very. I'm looking forward to it. Thank you very much. Be happy, never content. Thank you to Mimboso, the wellness company, for capturing everything, and obviously here at Woodbury House. Nice one.
Cool.